It's August 5th, 2005. A normal day for many, but at the foot of the United States District Court for the District of Maryland, a suit brought a development team into the spotlight. iRacing Motorsport Simulations, on that day, filed a suit against Tim Robinson, a self-proclaimed sim racing enthusiast, on 5 counts of contract breaching, copyright infringement, and circumvention of copyright protection systems. This is a case that changed sim racing forever. Before we get to the suit itself, we have to know the two parties, and how they came to this position. iRacing Motorsport Simulations, which will be referred to as iRacing for the time being, came from the ashes of Papyrus Design Group, headed by David Kamer, which shut down in May of 2004. On the 28th of May, the rights to the code of NASCAR Racing Season 2003 were officially in their hands. After years of working with other companies such as Vivendi Universal, the new First Racing Corporation was ready to work on a new project, and their only requirement for those wishing to be beta testers was simple: own a copy of NASCAR Racing Season 2003 and download their mod. The message which possible testers were sent read as follows: Dear racing enthusiast, hello from FirstRacing.net and thank you for expressing interest in becoming a beta tester. We are offering you an opportunity to participate in early beta testing of some of the structures and concepts FirstRacing.net intends to eventually offer to customers. You will play a potentially significant role in helping to shape what will become the finest learning tool and competitive environment serious racing enthusiasts have ever seen. To become a beta tester, you must carefully read the non-disclosure agreement we have attached here, and please complete the following steps. First, download the non-disclosure agreement here. Print, read carefully, and fill out the non-disclosure agreement next. And finally, send the NDA immediately to FirstRacing.net at Steve Myers, 175 Middlesex Turnpike, Suite 2B, Bedford, Massachusetts, 01730. NDA must be received by January 5th. There will be no exceptions to this deadline. Beta testing is not fun in games. It's a commitment to being part of a team that is developing a racing simulation of the highest order. If you are given an opportunity to participate, you will be joining the first beta league and participate in active competition in testing new products. These products are presently rudimentary and are based on NASCAR Racing 2003. You must own a copy of NASCAR Racing 2003 product from Papyrus Racing Games. At this very early stage of testing, we are using very low horsepower cars for testing the beginning levels of first. Therefore, your experience level can be from novice to expert. It does not matter. What matters is participation and feedback. Races will be held Sundays, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays at 3 p.m. ET, 6 p.m. ET, 9 p.m. ET, and midnight ET. Therefore, testers should reside in or near the 4 American time zones or European time zones at this point. We ask that you try to race at least twice a week. Races generally last less than 1 hour. We also ask that you comment what you like and don't like. Please understand that many features are under development and not available at this time. What you will be testing is not representative of what is under development at this moment. We are primarily testing concepts and structures. If you fill out the NDA properly, you should expect to hear from us in the very near future, because the next beta session begins January 9th. Please keep this invitation to you confidential. Thank you, Nim Cross, Commissioner at FirstRacing.net. This is the message that Tim Robinson was given on December 21st of 2004. The defendant of this case, Mr. Robinson, has an inconspicuous name, but as this story goes on, he became iRacing's biggest enemy. Robinson owned the domains ourracing.com and acquired tornadoalley.com, which were both sites which hosted NR 2003 mods. These mods, like the ones today, are packs created altering the way in which the physics engine interprets the cars, and while it is commonplace in the community today, when these mods came out with each new game Papyrus made, they are being created by reverse engineering and taking apart the game, which became the main factor iRacing leaned on when going against Mr. Robinson. The second aspect, these mods being sold as standalone .exe files, meaning that without the purchase of NR 2003, it's possible to use these mods, not to emulate the NASCAR Winston Cup season, but to emulate open wheel cars, which Tim Robinson worked on with the others in the community. Per Tim Robinson, I did not start the website called TornadoAlley.com. The Tornado Alley website was started by David Ketterson of Atlanta, Georgia. I was a member of TornadoAlley.com. After I had been a member for about 2 years, Ketterson offered the website to me for $1, and I took control of it in January of 2005. This site serves as a host to let people hook up together to compete in races. I took it over because I did not want to see the site go away. The Wishifile application was posted on the Tornado Alley website in the fall of 2004 before I acquired that website. The Tornado Alley site did not host open wheel races using a modified NASCAR 2003 executable. After the Wishifile, Open Wheel Sprint Car mod package was released in September of 2004, and it was only used for one race on TornadoAlley.com. The Wishifile is a precursor to the main mod, which was mentioned further on, dubbed as the OWR 2K5 file. When it comes to the originality of the OWR mod, Robinson stated that the OWR 2K5 file is not identical to NR2003.exe. Identical suggests that they will be the same size, which they are not. I never said that I only changed less than 0.1% as appears in the earlier court memorandum. I believe that was Mr. DeLong's assertion. The NR2003 exe file size is 5,297 kilobytes. The OWR 2K5 file is 3,720 kilobytes, which is about 70% of the size of the NASCAR 2003 exe file. Therefore, I would dispute the fact that 99.9% of the original code could be in my OWR 2K5 file, which is only 70% as large as the NR 2003 exe file. Judging by available footage at the time of my research, this does not appear to be less than a tenth's worth of original content, as the sounds, speeds, and models of the cars are all extremely different from the look and behavior of NR 2003 Cup cars. Furthermore, when it came to the sale of the mod, Robinson added that my work was completely non-commercial. I never charged for it, I never accepted money for it, I never used advertising to create revenue. There was never any advertising associated with my site. My work was simply given away. When I started this work, the NASCAR 2003 game was off the market. It was no longer being sold. From his perspective, when it comes to the NR 2003 segment of this case, he had not only used the product which he purchased for personal transformative works and was not responsible for the publicization of this product, but, referencing the GTP mod which Tim MacArthur was sued for, he believed, like MacArthur's work, Robinson had been unfairly stopped, as he had not commercialized the product and had not gained any monetary value from the project, and due to that, he was not one of the quote, hackers and thieves he said the now-defunct first iRacing site had mentioned about the sim racing community. However, iRacing has a different story to tell. iRacing's belief was that these modifications were blatant copyright thefts, as their physics formulas were located by third parties who determined what the meaning was, illicitly acquired the information, and used them to make profits with modifications online. iRacing's CEO, David Kamer, stated that, in or around August of 2005, iRacing discovered that Robinson was offering for free download the following computer files: OWR2K5_V1.0.0.01.zip, the iRacing 2005 mod on iRacing.com, and OWSC_nocd.temp.zip, the nocd file, on TornadoAlley.com and on iRacing.com. In or around August of 2005, iRacing downloaded these files and saved the files on their own computers. iRacing did not authorize Robinson to make or distribute derivative versions of NASCAR 2003. In fact, iRacing took steps to protect its copyrights by sending Robinson letters demanding that he cease and desist from offering and infringing the files for download over the internet. In the original complaint notice spearheading the suit, a timeline is shown of how iRacing became aware of this issue. In December of 2004, iRacing trusted Robinson enough to allow him to test the beta version of an auto racing simulation computer game iRacing was developing but had not yet released, the quote, beta software, under the protection of a confidential disclosure agreement. A few months later, iRacing discovered that Robinson was offering unauthorized modifications to iRacing's NASCAR Racing 2003 season computer auto racing simulation software for free download from iRacing.com and asked Robinson to cease and desist from offering those downloads. Robinson temporarily removed the links from his website to the offending files, but threatened to make the links active again at an appropriate time. Apparently, Robinson believes it is now an appropriate time to intentionally and maliciously violate iRacing's registered copyrights in NASCAR 2003 by offering downloads and reactivate links to his modifications of NASCAR 2003, which modifications include mechanisms that enable end users to circumvent NASCAR 2003's copyright protection systems, register and maintain two different sister websites, being iRacing and TornadoAlley.com, through which he can facilitate the propagation and support of his NASCAR 2003 derivative versions, and violate the confidential disclosure agreement by disclosing and disseminating confidential proprietary information regarding iRacing's beta software. Steve Myers also gave testimony on the matter, in which he showed his confusion on how, despite fundamentally altering the way in which the physics engine worked without any documentation, Robinson was still able to make a modification of the game without reusing code, directly stating, "On January 18th to 23rd of 2006, I examined the files on the 17 CDs produced by Tim Robinson in response to iRacing's document requests. On one of the computer files in the issue, in this case, OWR2K5, was included on one of the production CDs. I carefully examined the internal files contained in OWR2K5. Based on the examination, I believe there are additional files associated with OWR2K5 that are responsive to iRacing's discovery requests that have not been produced, including but not limited to raw data, source code, byproducts, previous iterations, all of which exist for any software development project, such as Robinson's work on OWR2K5. Moreover, all software developers retain notes and documentation and/or data regarding the software code values exchanged within the program. Based on these materials, a third party can see exactly what Robinson did to create OWR2K5. For example, OWR2K5 is a quote, zipped computer file, which contains a custom-built installer using MindVision software's Vice installer. This MindVision application is not native to NR 2003, and, in fact, specifically used to add, copy, and move files. For the MindVision file to operate, it needs custom-programmed instructions. Nevertheless, Robinson did not produce anything reflecting the MindVision instructions and commands on the produced CDs. When it came to the mods such as the OWR2K5 package, iRacing held them on 4 counts: copyright infringement, circumvention of copyright protection, declaratory relief, and breach of the EULA, which, per iRacing, states that the EULA explicitly prohibits copying, reproducing, deriving source code, or reverse engineering NASCAR 2003. For example, analyzing the computer language instructions to determine the way in which the programs were written, transferring reproductions of NASCAR 2003 to other parties in any way, and exploiting the game for, quote, any commercial purpose. Finally, the EULA limits the purposes for which an end user may copy the program to those necessary for the end user's utilization of the program or for his or her personal archives. The EULA specifically requires the end user to destroy all archival copies of the program if he or she transfers his or her rights to the program. The basics of this case came down to one aspect. Are the modifications transformative? In my opinion, I would say that these are transformative works, as the cars do not behave as stock cars, but also do not sound like stock cars, or are advertised as stock cars. The workarounds used, such as the no CD, had the potential to, quote, cause damages to the amount of money coming in for NR 2003. But why do I say potential? Because the lifespan of Papyrus as a company, in my opinion, dictated the results of this court case. I'll get to that perspective later, but the case didn't stop at NR 2003. A certain beta software also caused major controversy, and that beta software both altered the outcome of this lawsuit, but the perception of the modern simulation world against new sims to this day. Enter the beta software. For the majority of the court case, the damages caused by NR 2003 mods are discussed, as they have happened before iRacing had gotten contact with Tim Robinson, as well as having the potential to circumvent their status as the copyright owners of NR 2003, as well as possible profits the company could have made while recruiting beta testers. iRacing also accused Mr. Robinson of breaching a non-disclosure agreement and leaking information about the mod team sent to him by the iRacing team. Their evidence goes as follows. In June and July of 2005, in violation of the confidential disclosure agreement, Robinson made numerous postings on the internet in which he disclosed and disseminated confidential and proprietary information regarding the beta software and differences between the beta software and NASCAR 2003. iRacing has captured screenshots of these postings and, if requested, will make them available in camera for the court's inspection. In one of these postings, Robinson asserted that the confidential disclosure agreement would, quote, never stand up in court. Robinson's violation of the confidential disclosure agreement was thus both intentional and malicious. There are a few things we learned from the forum posts, which I will read following a basic overview about Tim and his sim racing experience based on these posts. He worked for Papyrus, meaning we can assume that he had some knowledge of how the simulator worked and not needing help from many other people. It makes sense how Tim Robinson can also be considered a target. There are two sides, at this point, of the modification community. The ones iRacing went after, and the ones iRacing invited with open arms. Robinson happened to be with Papyrus at one point, showing he had the knowledge to make his own simulator off iRacing, but not only did he have the potential, but he was in the midst of making his own iRacing. I can't say I mean that in a literal sense, at least fully, but Tim Robinson and the people he worked with knew what Papyrus could do, and instead of playing favorites and suing men named Tim, they had amassed a following within the community. One quote proves that had Mr. Robinson not been forced to pay damages, he would very well be on the same ground. I'm saving it for the end, but the way I see it, iRacing did not start with Papyrus. It began with what iRacing feared, the little man. From Mr. Robinson on this matter, ex-Papyrus, yes. Disgruntled? I doubt it. iRacing stated that their original complaint was that Robinson had spoken of differences between the mod and base NR 2003, and I believe for the most part they speak of the message in which Robinson says that the car he ran was a quote, tricked up IROC car, and that there were about 15 teams with about 10 people on them. While I can argue for Robinson when it comes to the modifications, this is, from a legal standpoint, easily something that can be given legal ramifications, and this was Mr. Robinson's biggest fault. His response to someone saying that he blew the NDA? If I did, big whoop, that NDA wouldn't stand up in court anyway. This, in my opinion, is exactly what caused the outcome of the iRacing dispute. The way iRacing framed these messages as intentional and malicious worked wonders for their team, which sent Robinson into a spiral of legal defense which he could not recover from. Tim replied to these pieces of evidence by saying that, I do not know where that info came from, as it came from someone I don't even know, nor do I remember the username used. It came in the form of a private message on any one of a number of discussion forums that I subscribe to. More importantly, the information is not relevant to the question at hand. It is merely an attempt by iRacing to have me rat out one of their beta testers. I believe the information came from a user at RaceSim Central, but I'm not 100% positive. I've checked the discussion forums I regularly frequent, and I have not found anything relevant. This is the beginning of the end. The settlement of this case was first reported in a document in March of 2006, which showed that iRacing would be interested in a cap payment being exchanged for the damages. As Tim Robinson learned of the original cap which iRacing requested, which is not in the documents, Robinson said the amount was not one he would be able to go past, which was not acceptable to iRacing, quoted. In the hearing in December 11th of 2007, iRacing proposed a cap on damages, and by the notice filed the week after, both parties, quote, appear willing and plan to continue to negotiate in good faith in an attempt to agree on a reasonable cap number. The case was terminated on May 29th of 2009, with Robinson liable on all counts, having to pay what we know over $25,000 in damages. A forum post mentioning an article, which had the damages paid at $25,002, happens to have Robinson in the thread, in which he states, the article you refer to doesn't completely tell the story as you might expect. There was a judgment against me, however, it is being appealed at the time. It also doesn't mention the fact that they are trying to get over $180,000 in lawyer's fees from me as well, which is ironic. Given in any event, that is all I care to and can say at this moment. That appeal did not end up removing the fine, as in a 2014 screenshot of the iRacing FAQ, iRacing has an entire section about how Robinson paid his fine, and the case's conclusion date. When it comes to the court case, while it may have been over, the blow-up online was only beginning. The thread on the US pits in October of 2009 is the one I came across, which had quite interesting discussions about what had happened within the community. A few interesting quotes came out in relation to iRacing's treatment of modders, including this insight from Tigger number 76, saying that, not that there was any need to add fuel to this fire, but it was frequently speculated a long time ago that the reason iRacing sent out the cease and desist orders, specifically targeting mods that adjusted the physics, was because iRacing planned to have a product based so closely on NR 2003 that allowing derivative physics released for free would directly compete with and impact their business model. It didn't matter if modifying the physics in a manner that had nothing to do with the breach of copyright was illegal or not. It had everything to do with pushing people to not modify NR 2003 because free altered physics would be bad for business. The statements made in the court show that these speculations were correct. Lord Pansington gave his take on the pricing model iRacing used, saying that, personally, I despise their play-to-pay system. It is nothing more than greed. Sure, you get a service, but I don't think it warrants the price. $40 for a disc seemed to be the going rate, no matter how much or little we actually used it. I hope for a catastrophic failure in their venture. If it's a successful system, I can see others picking it up. It's a system that I will not support. Nathan Ritchie 72 put his thoughts as a member of the NR 2003 modding community, saying that, personally, this is the biggest reason I do not even try iRacing. Being a modder myself, this is the kind of BS I do not want to see happen, and I will not support anyone who tries such things. I feel the same way as someone posted here. If iRacing would have just made an updated NR03, be it open wheel or not, and not gone after anyone, I would have bought it, and I am sure others would have as well. Papyrus was on the top of the world with this stuff. There was no need to go the way they went. I also think a help support T Robinson PayPal link should be put up. Granted, I'm not rich so I can't put in much, but I would put in what I can, and I think all the modders at the very least should do the same. $25,000 is no laughing matter, and adding legal expenses to that, I'm sure you're pretty broke. Left Hand put in his take on how iRacing put Robinson in a horrible position, as he put this into the forum. Most folks crap themselves going to the traffic court down the street, but federal court half a country away? Hey, no big thing if you aren't the one they are going after. So now Robinson is a world of crap without a pot to pee in. What do we do about that? He just loses about everything and the fanboys just want to throw him under the bus. His house is lined, his credit destroyed, and now those guys want another $250,000 from him. While you're turning lax on a pretty looking track worrying about the spread of your tire attempts, got any ideas on how he feeds his wife and kid, and why he's in this spot? Because he modded a video game. Sorry, but that's all this stuff is, which caught the attention of an MLB franchise owner. I'm sure the sim will lead to an F1 or NASCAR career for its users. Go ahead, pay them. Robinson has to. Why not you also? This has always been about money, nothing else. Amtronic put a comparison on ID to iRacing, and in this comparison, he said that I still like to race NR 2003, even though it is years old. I am also part of the ID and Quake community, and the difference is night and day. With ID, you can email developers and get their help with your mod. They even released the source code. They support just about any platform you want, and on this side, you get lawsuits. How disappointing. To summarize the thoughts on this forum, the egg put these 3 points down. First, iRacing must hate guys named Tim. Secondly, I'm not sure if these men behind iRacing are candidates for heaven when they die. And finally, if you're gonna post stuff like that guy did, get a freaking offshore anonymous web host and upload stuff from public Wi-Fi. Seriously, when you own a website, your name and address are available to anyone who checks Whois. I just think if I did this, I would never get caught because I would be too smart for old John Law. With the case behind us, I have a few thoughts, and I believe the case was built on incredibly shaky ground. Based off what I found within the discussion of this case, and the documents within it, I found many things that, had they not been painted as one thing or the other, would have changed the outcome of this case in its entirety. Example number 1 being the 65% quote. The question that was asked of David Kamer was very simple. How much of the original NR 2003 code remains in the iRacing software? He responded with, I do not know exactly, but I estimate that 65% is unaltered NR 2003 code. Tim Robinson's lawyer asked, so why do you say as little as 1% to the media and to your own site? And Kamer responded with, we tell the public and media a different number. Tim's lawyer asked, why would you do that? Kamer responds with, we do not want our customers to know, or they may not buy our product. 65% is further from an entirely new game, and far more similar to what Robinson must have been doing than what iRacing today is doing, which explains the protective behavior of iRacing for years, which happened until iRacing got off its feet and hit sim racing popularity, and was what Robinson has said about the original test being within NR 2003, and his ex-papyrus status, also gave reason for him to be capable, if not more capable, than Kamer and his team. If the suspicion the community had about iRacing's similarity in comparison to Robinson's work made his project direct competition that, through legal technicalities, could be wiped out, then iRacing used its force as a corporation to power through innocent individuals to fund their own project. Bad enough if considered, but far worse if true. Next, the potential of NR 2003 as is. Well, what is there? I would argue that at the time, the only real competition would be R Factor, and due to licenses, Arca Sim Racing 2008. But as is today, the modifications are far less advanced than iRacing, and going after developers which use other engines with the series that they had licenses for would be far better for them when it comes to profits. This relates to how the size of the enemy could have changed their decision on who the enemy really was. Take for instance the ASRX project, which has kept Arca 08 online and moving with a community that continues to modernize the aging R Factor core. If iRacing were to have gone after those individuals, especially with their Arca license, they could have made far more from them from the people who dropped the service both through their shadier past with their own potential customers and their subscription layout by far. Had they waited for their service to surpass anything Robinson, MacArthur, or anyone of their caliber could ever do, they could have a better reputation and more profit from a smaller target than the people they worked with. Whether or not this was all targeted, if it was done out of spite or done with a legitimate reason, this case changed the way we look at the modern sim racing platform. The way that consoles have been neglected entirely, solely made to make money off of licenses gotten haphazardly, and moving the community to the wayside, believing that they will do everything themselves. This is the mentality that came out of this suit. The idea that any holder of a simulation's rights can smite fan-made works with so much effort that they are considered a threat, and rather than helping them, they choose to wipe them out. But, through every action that came of it, whoever took either side, the only thing that we know for sure is that this is the case that changed sim racing forever. I want to thank you all for watching that video. If you did enjoy it, be sure to like and subscribe. There's going to be a video coming out about OWR 2005. There wasn't a lot of documentation at first, but when I did a little bit more hunting on that, I found out a lot more, and I'm going to be happy to share that with all of you. Once again, thank you for all of the support. It's been amazing, a lot of growth recently, and I will see you all in the next one. Stay safe and don't get sued by iRacing.